It's time for TigerNet Talk with L. Swan.
You know, that's why Carolina's in Chapel Hill and USC's in California. And the university in this state always has been, always will be, Clemson. Print that, tweet that.
And I hope they come in undefeated. That's what I told you before the game. Our team believes. Our team believes. They got heart. We got greatness in us. They say we can't do it. What they say now?
Down go the champs.
Welcome back into another edition of TigerNet Talk, broadcasting live here on the front page of Vocal and on the front page of TigerNet.com. Wednesday nights, 9 p.m., kicking it off. I almost said 10. 10 was the old start time, but then I realized that I wanted to keep some of the shall I say, older crowd involved with the program. Is that fair? You know, last time I mentioned anything about people being old, I got an email from one of our listeners. It was pretty funny, actually. But you know what? We enjoy everybody who tunes in to the program, whether you watch it live. And if you do watch it live, let me tell you the fun part about it. You get in the chat room there. Chris and Patrick, I see them right now going back and forth a little bit. An opportunity to share some of your thoughts about this Clemson Tiger team with other Clemson Tiger fans out there. And for whatever reason, for the second time in a row, when Patrick is in the chat room, he is talking double. And I don't know what the deal is with that. He's trying to figure it out right now. I can tell you this, though. Tommy Chastain on Twitter, I'm sure he'll be in here with us. And also, Clemson Tom. There's no doubt Clemson Tom's going to be here. He asked me what time is the show. 9 p.m. Sundays and Wednesdays. Tune into the program. Let me tell you how you can take part with us. There's a couple of ways. First, ClemsonSportsTalk.com. That's our website. If you go there, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, on the side, it says send a voicemail. You think I've said something completely boneheaded? Let me know about it. I want to hear from you. Don't sit there and stew in your car. Sit there and stew at your gymnasium. Do what you got to do. Get in touch with me. Or give us a call, 803-450-0086. And don't say, well, I'm not listening live. You know what? Phone lines are always open. You can also leave a voicemail there, 803-450-0086. Step off the treadmill. Tell me about what you don't like about the program or what you want to hear. Hashtag TN Talk on Twitter and emails, clemson81@gmail.com. I tried to make it simple for you. I don't want it to be too difficult. I want you to be able to take part in the program however you choose to. Tweet to us again, that hashtag TN Talk. That's a way you can participate live. We've always got Twitter pulled up on one of our monitors. The football season is in full gear. The Clemson Tigers had a week off. It was a nice, perfect time to have it, mid-season, right there in the middle. It's not often that it comes perfectly in the middle of the year if you don't include a possible Atlantic Coast Conference championship game and a bowl game. But the sixth game of the season, you get a downtime in week 7, kind of get to heal some injuries, maybe put in a few packages that you perhaps didn't already have, and maybe get a guy like Sammy Watkins back up to full strength. I mean, it's obvious that there have been some issues with Sammy Watkins. It's clear to see Sammy's not 100%. And I think people are concerned, will Clemson begin to force the issue to Sammy? But you've got to admit, when you look at this offense right now and the way that DeAndre Hopkins has played, and I was reading the article on the front page of TigerNet earlier, and DeAndre was explaining his nickname, Nuke. And I always wondered, because my son is 3, was his nickname actually because of the pacifiers, which I always thought was Nuck, but maybe it is still Nuke, those pacifiers. And he says indeed it was. He used to chew them up as a kid when he was little. And he's hoping that you guys will not bring pacifiers to the stadium, and for crying out loud, you know for a fact the Carolina Gamecocks are probably thinking about some type of sabotage of sorts if DeAndre Hopkins were to have a poor game against the Carolina Gamecocks at the end of the year. How could you blame them? How could you blame them? Pacifiers. I always wondered. I never got the chance to ask the question. Apparently, David Hood got the chance, and the answer is indeed yes. But I think Nuke is better because that guy is blowing up. But when you think about these two wide receivers, you've got to hope that a guy like Taj Boyd doesn't begin to force the issue towards Sammy Watkins because of the numbers game. And I don't think he will, because I think we've seen a real maturity in Taj Boyd this year. And the one thing that great quarterbacks don't do, and I started to get into this a little bit on Clemson Hotline, and then I got a bit sidetracked, is force the issue and make bad mistakes. You look back to the Boston College game, he did make one poor throw into double coverage that he probably shouldn't have made. If you want to win ball games, I don't care if you're playing in the ACC, the SEC, Pee Wee football, don't turn the ball over. I'm not sure what the exact percentage is, but I'm guessing upwards of about 85% of the time, if you lose the turnover battle, you lose the game. Possessions are big in sports in general. College football is one of those sports where, you know, when you look at a team like Clemson, as fast-paced as they are up and down the field, well, they have 6 possessions, I believe, in that game against Georgia Tech in the second half. 6 possessions. Now, it's a little bit different because Georgia Tech does run a lot more clock than maybe many teams. But how many possessions, what is the maximum number of possessions you can expect to get in the game if you're not forcing turnovers? I'm not sure it's much more than 7 or 8 in a half, I should say. Troy checks in. He says, amen, fundamentals. You got to be smart with the football. And you've seen guys, this is where I was going on the program the other day, Sunday, 9 p.m., Clemson Hotline. Check us out. Was that Connor Shaw has played fairly flawless football, to the point of somebody saying that he was a top 4 candidate for the Heisman Trophy, which I thought was bizarre. This is all before the LSU game. But you can see what happens when all of a sudden maybe there's pressure. You're on the road. You're playing in a hostile environment. You've got to make a big play. Connor Shaw broke down a little bit mentally. And that's the reason you can have a little faith in E.J. Manuel perhaps having another breakdown if Florida State gets in a pickle. What you have to avoid is a guy like Taj Boyd doing it. And the last time we really saw Taj Boyd break down mentally was in the Orange Bowl. And that was an unfortunate circumstance because you had a play similar to the one that happened in the Notre Dame-Stanford game. But instead of your player being ruled, forward momentum being ruled down, or not in the end zone, as in the case of the Stanford-Notre Dame game last weekend, you had a player whose forward momentum was stopped, but then the ball was stripped while they were holding him up. That moment, a few plays later, Taj Boyd with an interception. Things are falling apart. Instead of being tied, you're down 14-21. The snowball's on. Clemson has fortunately been able to avoid that, and in some cases where Taj Boyd has made a bad throw or had a turnover in the game, he has not let it continue to fester. There was one moment in the Auburn game where you saw Taj Boyd get a little antsy, get a little, I like to say a hitch in his giddy up. Some people make fun of that comment, but you guys who know about people with some giddy-ups, you know what I mean. But Taj got himself back together. He got composed. There had been a couple of drops in that game. And instead of letting that fester and build inside him, he took it, got everybody together, said, you know what, we're going to be all right. Went back out on the field and got a win against an Auburn team that obviously is not as good as we thought. Tommy Chastain checks in. He says he's ready for some flyby action pre-game in the Valley on Saturday. Talk about awesome. How about Daniel Rodriguez in that story? Has there been a better story about a player at Clemson in the past 20 years, 30 years, ever? I'm not sure that you could think of one right now as far as guys who have done active military duty and then been a part of this Clemson Tiger team. I'm not old enough to remember what occurred around the end of World War II, maybe the Vietnam War, which sadly a lot of those soldiers weren't celebrated the way they should have been. But have we ever had a player that has done so much in a wartime the way Daniel Rodriguez did? We'll be back to talk a little bit about that. Stay with us through the break. You're listening to TigerNet Talk. Enjoy the Clemson football season at Seasons by the Lake Restaurant. Tiger Tailgate on the Terrace at Seasons Restaurant will be held every Clemson football game day, rain or shine, home or away, from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. for those day games and noon to midnight for the evening kickoffs. Enjoy a large screen TV, a Bloody Mary and mimosa bar, specialty drinks, and a great tailgate menu, all on the Seasons Terrace. For more information, call 656-7444 or visit their Facebook page, facebook.com/Seasons by the Lake. I hope to see you on the terrace.
We scoop the boot, dutycalls.com. When nobody else will do it, dutycalls.com. To make that dog poop go away, call or click for a free quote today.
When nature calls, we answer. To get a free quote for dog poop removal, go to dutycalls.com now.
DOODYCALLS. Dutycalls.com.
In the Midlands area, dial 1-800-DUTY-CALLS. They're number 1 and number 2. G-Dog General Dentistry at Oak Grove is located on Highway 1 near the Barnyard Flea Market. Modern, relaxing dentistry with TVs and headphones in every room, nitrous and even oral sedation. Digital diagnostic x-rays for better quality and 85% less radiation exposure. And check out their new Clemson Patient Special. Mention that you heard about G-Dog here on the Clemson Sports Talk programs and receive an extra 5% off all services through football season. If you don't have a regular dentist, go see my dentist, Dr. Rick Jackson at G-Dog. That's General Dentistry at Oak Grove. Are you a landowner who owns more than 10 acres that's interested in selling timber or pulpwood off your property? Cross Creek Timber is a full-service timber procurement company that buys standing saw timber and pulpwood. They're staffed with professional licensed foresters and fully insured with both workers' comp and general liability insurance. Let Cross Creek Timber develop the appropriate harvesting plan for your property and answer any questions regarding forest management. Call today, 864-517-3620. That's 864-517-3620 for your free woodland evaluation, or visit www.crosscreektimber.com.
Clemson Tigers, we coming for you.
Yeah. That's how we do it, baby. Little tailgate party. Y'all better come on. It's going down.
We about to back it on up in the parking lot. Got the beer on ice and the grill is hot. On your mark, get set, baby, ready or not. We gonna get some. Tiger.
Welcome back into the program. I'm your host, Lawton Swan. You're listening to TigerNet Talk, broadcasting live Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Clemson Times checking in. We're hoping that Carolina Clint is checking out. Let me tell you folks about Vostok Coolers. Go to VostokCoolers.com. They've got coolers for all your favorite sports programs out there, your state. They've got a tire cooler if you're into NASCAR. And Chad_Rainwater won our Vostok cooler. I'm expecting the cooler to arrive any day now, and I'll do everything I can. Chad, if you're listening to the program, get in touch with me, because I do want to make sure we get that out to you as soon as possible. If you didn't know this, basketball season is right around the corner. Coach Brad Brownell, who, I got to tell you guys, I like Brad Brownell. I think he's a great X's and O's guy. Every time I've had a chance to talk with him, he has been unbelievably well-versed and kind. I'll say that about him. You know, sometimes these coaches can get a little arrogant, I think, about who they are. Thank goodness we don't have that at Clemson University right now, especially with the football program and the basketball program. You could argue those two programs are the biggest. I think that, well, would anybody give an argument? Would anybody put Jack Leggett into the mix of head coaches as far as the size of the program and what people expect? I mean, I know we love baseball, and I know Clemson's baseball program has been a national contender, but when I talk about the major programs on campus, the coverage goes to football and basketball. Apparently Patrick is now triple posting. He's so excited to be here. I don't know what's going on with that in the chat room. It makes it hard for me. Oh, CT is triple posting. Maybe you guys are somehow in the chat room twice. I don't understand that. It's a little bit of a pain for me, because when I see you guys saying something, it's hard for me to follow because it jumps the screen so much in the little window that I have. But it is the 4th annual Rock the John, which is perhaps the worst name ever for any event in the history of college sports. But I'll say it again. It is the 4th annual Rock the John, or Clemson's version of Midnight Madness. I'd rather it be called that. Clemson's version of Midnight Madness. Friday, October the 21st, Little John Coliseum. It's a free event for all Clemson Tigers or anybody else, sponsored by a couple of companies who don't pay me anything. So if you want to find out, show up at Rock the John to see who is sponsoring it. If they would pay me, I'd gladly mention them. But it's going to celebrate the 2011-2012 basketball season kicking off. So check that out. Big time stuff over there. Getting the, that's the 20th. The 20th Rock the John. I mean, not the 20th Rock the John, October 20th for Rock the John. So you want to be there and get that underway as the basketball season kicks off. Your Clemson Tigers picked 8th in the Atlantic Coast Conference by the coaches, by the way, in the preseason poll. NC State 1, Duke 2, North Carolina 3. Miami comes in at 4, Florida State 5, Maryland 6, Virginia 7th, and Clemson is at 8th, followed by Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, Wake Forest, and Boston College. So there you have it, the basketball season not too far away. 8th, though. You know, is that a disappointment for anybody, or is that about where you thought we'd be? That would be my question to you. Tweet to us, hashtag TN Talk. Follow us on Twitter. We're at Clemson Sports, or in the chat room. Let us know. Is 8 too high, too low, or just about right for your Clemson Tigers as we trickle into the beginning of the college basketball season? And that's when things really start to pick up. You've got some football going on. You got some basketball games going on. I mean, there's stuff going on all the time. My favorite time of the year back in my college days was basketball. Rick Barnes had that team playing at a high level, always bringing Papa John's pizza and stuff out to the students who were camping out to get tickets. I hope that rush still exists. Tommy seems to feel like 8th is about right. Very young team, I will agree. And your veterans right now, Milton Jennings, he's so up and down. All the talent in the world, the size to play with anybody, speed and quickness. He's one of those matchup nightmares for a lot of teams. Unfortunately, up until last season, he had underwhelmed. And I hope that maybe this will be a breakout year for him. And Devin Booker has never really been as good as I think people had hoped. I mean, his brother clearly the better of the two, but many people hoped that he would come in and have an impact. You got a couple of upperclassmen who are big men that I think could be impactful, but like Tommy's saying, I mean, you got a bunch of young guys controlling the ball. You lose a guy like Coleman, that's really going to hurt the team. He's out the entire year. Devin Coleman had come on really strong. Left-handed guy, reminded people a lot of maybe a KC Rivers, a silky smooth player who's undersized but could get to the rim. That's unfortunate that he's out. But altogether, 8th, 7th, I think that's probably where most of you expected. I don't see a bunch of people disagreeing in the chat room that that's a complete abomination of a pick. Moving on. Just had to read a little quick post there in the chat room about how Clemson gives out tickets, and apparently they don't like the way it's being done. Now, last year, your Clemson Tigers traveled up to Blacksburg, Virginia, came away with a 23-3 victory in a game that really, as I said on Sunday night, put Clemson on the map as far as people beginning to believe. I mean, you can talk about what happened against Auburn. You can talk about what happened against Florida State. But when Clemson left the friendly confines of Death Valley to go on the road up to Blacksburg to play a night game in a rainy, kind of a chilly evening, the type game that for years Virginia Tech just smacked people around, and Clemson went in there and did a number on the Hokies, all of a sudden ESPN took note, CNNSI took note, the polls took note, and that was the moment last year where many of you said, hey, hold up, this is a special year. This team has a real chance. And, of course, we all know how things played out. Clemson runs out 8 games. They go over to Georgia Tech, lose that one. The back end of the season was a struggle. And that's kind of been Clemson football for a while. You either start off out of the blocks like I'm trying to think. I was going to say Usain Bolt, but I don't think that's a fair comparison. I think maybe if you watched 9.79 on ESPN the other day, and you talk about those track guys back in the 80s, Ben Johnson, that guy got out the box fast. Now, he might have been cheating a little bit, but he got out of the box quick. Clemson's been one of those teams. We either sprint out to a good start or we come out sputtering and we finish strong. We can never be that Usain Bolt where we come out the blocks faster than everybody and we finish harder than everybody. We're looking for that magical year again. One loss right now, if you listen to ESPN, if you listen to the pundits, there's no chance Clemson can get into the national championship mix. There's no chance they're going to get into the top 10, the top 5. It's over. Basically, pack your bags. Football season's done. That's what the media and ESPN wants you to believe right now. And I'm not telling you that you can get to the national championship game, but I think Dabo Swinney's got the right attitude, and it's the attitude that many of us need to have, and that's to realize that all you can do is control this coming game. You have to focus on the game that is ahead, the next ball game. And it doesn't matter if you play Wake Forest on a Thursday following this weekend's game. That's not what you're focused on. You got to focus on the Hokies. And right now, what Clemson does control is each and every ball game they go into, because I clearly believe we have the offense to beat any team remaining on our schedule. Any team. Offense is good enough to beat. Patrick says the media is all-knowing and right about everything. And I know he says that in jest. And I guess I like to think I'm right and all-knowing about everything. You probably don't agree. But I will say that when you look at the teams remaining on the schedule, while there are a couple of really good defenses, this Clemson offense is good enough to beat anybody that's put in front of them. You saw it in Tallahassee. Florida State has an unbelievable defense. Florida State is probably the one reason right now that Clemson is not being respected in the polls and the BCS, and maybe you could factor in an Auburn team over in the SEC West really struggling. But when Clemson went up to Blacksburg last year and took care of business, 23-3, people kind of woke up for a minute. And then you went through the schedule, you struggled late, you lost to Carolina, but you had a chance to bounce back in the Atlantic Coast Conference Championship game. The guys took it seriously in Charlotte. It was a great environment, 38-10. Clemson scores 28 points over the last 17 minutes of that game, during a 17-minute stretch in the second half to start the second half. And from that point forward, it was blowout city. So you really have to feel good, I think, coming into this ball game against a Virginia Tech team who many people thought would be much better than they are right now. Dabo Swinney, 23-4 in Death Valley, looking for that 11th victory in a row at home, which would give Clemson a tie for the all-time consecutive wins record at home. So we've got that. You hear Dabo saying to everybody, you know what, you made the difference against Georgia Tech. You need to be there early. Noon kickoffs are often fought about, argued about. But how cool is it going to be to see a guy like Daniel Rodriguez standing at the top of the hill with that American flag on his father's birthday, playing against Virginia Tech, a team he was a fan of as he was growing up. I mean, it's an unbelievable story. It's going to be an unbelievable day, Military Appreciation Day, and I can't think of anybody better to be at the top of the hill this year than Daniel Rodriguez. Stay with us. Blake Austin of South Carolina Farm Bureau is an insurance agent you can count on to meet all your needs. Home, auto, health, life, you name it, Blake's got you covered, and he can save you on your yearly rates. Call him now for a free quote, 803-259-5008. That's 803-259-5008. Or just go to ClemsonSportsTalk.com and click on the Farm Bureau logo to be connected to Blake. Do like I do and work with the best agent around, and you can tweet that. Take your business to the next level with innovative website design from Foodog Media. Foodog can handle all your web, graphic, and social media needs. Call them today, 843-864-9268. That's 843-864-9268. Mention this ad and receive 10% off of your website. Foodog is a Clemson-owned business. See their portfolio at www.foodogmedia.net. May the food be with you.
Hate the thought of shopping All that hassle and can't find what you're looking for anyway? We understand. Retail stores make it difficult. Instead, try www.edistooutdoors.com. Edisto Outdoors features performance apparel and gear engineered for performance, comfort, and style. EdistoOutdoors.com. You'll enjoy the shopping and you'll enjoy the products. Great products from people who care.
G-Dog General Dentistry at Oak Grove is located on Highway 1 near the Barnyard Flea Market. Modern, relaxing dentistry with TVs and headphones in every room, nitrous and even oral sedation. Digital diagnostic x-rays for better quality and 85% less radiation exposure. And check out their new Clemson Patient Special. Mention that you heard about G-Dog here on the Clemson Sports Talk programs and receive an extra 5% off all services through football season. If you don't have a regular dentist, go see my dentist, Dr. Rick Jackson at G-Dog. That's General Dentistry at Oak Grove.
I thought I'd grow up and I'd settle down. There was 10,000 girls up in Tiger Town, and it was heaven to me. I used to sneak downtown with my fake ID and watch Doug McCormick rock TD.
Got some people in the chat room and on Twitter saying they're having some trouble with vocal. I'm not sure about that. I apologize. You know, this vocal 2.0 thing, it was a step in the right direction in a lot of ways because of how I see the chat on my end, the way I'm able to participate with you guys, see the live video questions, lots of stuff like that. But we've obviously run into major video issues, which I brought to their attention. And now with people having issues logging in, I mean, it's a little bit of an inconvenience for everybody, I know. And what I don't want is for those of you who want to take part in the show, who want to watch, to not be able to get in there. The video is atrocious. I'll agree. David's in the chat room. He says the video is not great at all. It's tough to read. You can't even read ClemsonSportsTalk.com at Clemson Sports. You know, I got in the habit of not mentioning that a whole lot because everybody could see it. 803-450-0086 is the way you can call us or leave us a voicemail on our website, ClemsonSportsTalk.com. It'll pop out on the right-hand side. Send voicemail. We would love to hear from you. Well, all of a sudden, I think there's the expectation from Clemson Tiger fans because of this 10-game home winning streak that Death Valley may be headed back to the glory days, the old days, the days where people came to Death Valley to get beat down. They came to die. Les Miles tried to say it. Unfortunately, he was talking about the wrong place. He was talking about the wrong place. Dreams come to die in Clemson. And I'll be honest with you, I would put, and I don't know about you guys in the chat room, right now, I don't care where they're ranked, if LSU would sign up in a Death Valley death match, winner gets the title, I'd be willing to put it on the line. If that meant that we didn't get to use it anymore because we got beat, good. At least it's settled. I would say put it on the line. Let's do this. Title v. title. The old days, you know, put the strap on the line. Ultimate Warrior Hulk Hogan. That's what I want to see. I'd like to see it. I mean, I don't think we need to argue over who's going to carry the mascot, but that name, Death Valley, needs to belong to somebody. Or put it up in a series, and then the winner gets to keep that title, and then if you beat them, you get it back. But this back and forth, Clemson was the first. They were deaf, D-E-A-F, and if that was their accent, I'm sorry. But we are Death Valley, and I'm willing to put it on the line. Are they? That's the question. Would they be willing to put it on the line? I know I would. So it will be nice to see Clemson maybe getting back to those old days at home, another victory over a Virginia Tech team at Clemson, which surprisingly Clemson has dominated this series, 19-12-1 all time. At Clemson, Clemson is 8-6-1 and 8-4 at Virginia Tech. Now, that last meeting, of course, was in the Atlantic Coast Conference Championship. Clemson's chance this year to beat Virginia Tech 3 times in less than a calendar year. You don't have that happen very often, that you get a chance to clip a team 3 times in less than 12 months. But that's what Clemson will attempt to do this weekend. Now, Virginia Tech plays Florida State this year. They play Clemson. Coming into the season, everybody knew those were going to be the top 2 teams. in the Atlantic Division. But when you and that was their cross-division games this year that they had to play. But when you look overall at the body of work for Virginia Tech this year, it's been a big disappointment. Losing games out of conference to Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, getting throttled by North Carolina, being down by 20 to Duke. Coming back, though, in last week's game to outscore the Blue Devils 41-0. They sit now at 4-3 and a disappointing team, I think. This year, the ACC and the media were touting Logan Thomas. And I don't know if that was the Cam Newton effect, what Cam Newton had on college football, the big quarterback. I didn't see it last year in a whole lot of games, especially in the games against Clemson. I never saw Virginia Tech and Logan Thomas as being a threat to Clemson at all. I know Clemson struggled at times against teams who had quarterbacks who could run the football, and he is a guy who does present a bit of a problem. You know, he's 6'6", 250, 260 pounds. He's a big kid. I mean, he's one of the few quarterbacks in the conference who can lower his shoulder against a linebacker and maybe win that battle 9 times out of 10. But that's the guy that he is. He's got a good arm. Let me rephrase that. He has a powerful arm. He doesn't have a very accurate arm. He can throw the ball a mile. I don't know what is it. Napoleon Dynamite, where the guy says he can throw the football, and you guys are going to kill me for not knowing that. I'm not a huge Napoleon Dynamite fan. Doesn't Uncle Rico say he can throw the football over a mountain or something like that? That's Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas is Uncle Rico. He can throw the football over a mountain range or whatever the saying is from that movie. Clemson Tom's yelling Uncle Rico at me, so at least I got it. It's Uncle Rico. He can run over your linebackers. He had 11 rushing touchdowns last year, but this has been a disappointing season for Thomas. He's 18 of 20 on the year, 1,703 yards with 12 touchdowns. Not outstanding numbers considered the competition they've played. They beat Georgia Tech in overtime. They beat Austin Peay, lost to Pittsburgh, Bowling Green. They beat 37-0. They lost to Cincinnati, North Carolina, Duke. They haven't come into this game. This is the first time this year they'll really play somebody that's a top team in the country right now. Now, North Carolina might end up winning the Coastal Division, but they're not eligible to play for the conference championship, so even a second-place finish in the division will be good enough for Virginia Tech. But right now, with Florida State remaining on their schedule, with Miami playing the way they've played this year, does Virginia Tech, are they in a situation where they need to win this game to at least finish second in the Coastal Division? Also, I'll give you this. Virginia Tech has had, I believe, 8 10-win seasons in a row. If Clemson can win this game, that streak will come to a close. That streak will end. They still want me to. I got to stop wearing the hood, because if I say a certain name of a player who has a lot of swag on our team, these guys in the chat room have said I have to wear my hood. The motion was passed. The headphones are huge. But if I say a certain player, he's a backup quarterback. You guys know him. If I say him, I'm supposed to wear my hood. I'm going to try and attempt to not do that. Now, they lost 8 starters, Virginia Tech did, off of this offense, 4 offensive linemen. Their only returning starter, their center, went down this week. He's out for the year. They lost their most productive wide receivers in the history of their program, Jarrett Boykin and Danny Cole. Those guys finished their career with a combined 349 grabs, 5,000-plus yards, 26 touchdowns. You've seen David Wilson playing for the New York Giants, doing a good job for the Giants. Former ACC Player of the Year, Wilson. They had to replace him. They got a couple of young running backs. Michael Holmes, J.C. Coleman. Those guys are going to carry the load for them, but they are not overly impressive, and they are not David Wilson. It's the first time in a while we've seen a Virginia Tech team that hasn't had a standout set of running backs that you may fear a little bit coming into the game. And many of you who listen to the program say, we don't fear anybody, we're Clemson. But you know when you're looking at tape and you see guys, you go, oh, man. Oh, did you see what that guy did last week? Right now, Virginia Tech doesn't have that offensively in the backfield. These guys may eventually be great. They may eventually be that, but right now they are not. They're good, not great. Clemson Tom says Thomas can throw the long ball, but will anyone catch it? The mystery remains to be seen. Now on defense, that's been their strength for so long. And yet Clemson was able to go through them like a hot knife through butter. I mean, last year Clemson just ate them up. Double moves on the outside, kept them off balance. Really kept them on their heels with the pace of the game. That's what I like about Chad Morris. He always keeps the defense guessing. And Morris has an uncanny ability, unlike many offensive coordinators that I've seen across the country, to get in a rhythm. To really get in a rhythm where he's got you guessing so bad that you think he's throwing the left hook, and while you're looking over there, here comes the right. And it's a beautiful thing about the job that he's done in his 2 years, or year and a half, I should say, at Clemson, is that when he gets things cooking and rolling, this offense is virtually unstoppable. The only thing that gets in his ways is what we can get in its way is what we talked about earlier, and that, of course, is turnovers. But this defense returned 9 starters. Their secondary, though, they lost Jaron Hosley, they lost Eddie Whitley, and Chris Hill. Those guys were really good. So they've had to replace some guys on the backside. But that front seven is pretty much the same front seven you saw last year. But you saw what Clemson was able to do. And I don't think Clemson appeared to be scared at any moment. Now, people talking about the rumors of Chad Morris leaving. Will he go to Texas? Will there be another opening? Arkansas, where's he going to end up? I just have a sneaky feeling, and I've said this all along, that Chad Morris is going to stay at Clemson for a little while. I truly believe that right now what he has at Clemson is so special. And if a guy like Hopkins could return, which I don't think many people think he will, when you look at the stats he's put up this year, you're not going to see those kind of numbers from somebody 2 years in a row, I don't think. Because I think much like what you've seen from Sammy Watkins, even though he's been out, people have keyed on Watkins more this year when he's been in. And maybe that's helped Nuke a little bit. Next year, the roles could be reversed if Nuke were to continue to put up this type of year. And I just don't think Nuke's going to want to come back and take a chance on that if he can avoid it. But this team in Virginia Tech, while Bud Foster's been one of the best defensive coordinators in college football, did not fare well in 2 events against Clemson last year. And coming into this game, I get the feeling that it could be more of the same for the Hokies in Death Valley. We'll talk about that, the PS3 prediction, and our prediction right after these messages. Stay with us.
We scoop the boot, dutycalls.com. When nobody else will do it, dutycalls.com. To make that dog poop go away, call or click for a free quote today.
When nature calls, we answer. To get a free quote for dog poop removal, go to dutycalls.com now.
DOODYCALLS. Dutycalls.com.
In the Midlands area, dial 1-800-DUTY-CALLS. They're number 1 and number 2. Enjoy the Clemson football season at Seasons by the Lake Restaurant. Tiger Tailgate on the Terrace at Seasons Restaurant will be held every Clemson football game day, rain or shine, home or away, from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. for those day games and noon to midnight for the evening kickoffs. Enjoy a large screen TV, a Bloody Mary and mimosa bar, specialty drinks, and a great tailgate menu, all on the Seasons Terrace. For more information, call 656-7444. or visit their Facebook page, facebook.com/Seasons by the Lake. I hope to see you on the terrace. Take your business to the next level with innovative website design from Foodog Media. Foodog can handle all your web, graphic, and social media needs. Call them today, 843-864-9268. That's 843-864-9268. Mention this ad and receive 10% off of your website. Foodog is a Clemson-owned business. See their portfolio at www.foodogmedia.net. May the food be with you. Blake Austin of South Carolina Farm Bureau is an insurance agent you can count on to meet all your needs. Home, auto, health, life, you name it, Blake's got you covered, and he can save you on your yearly rates. Call him now for a free quote, 803-259-5008. That's 803-259-5008. Or just go to ClemsonSportsTalk.com and click on the Farm Bureau logo to be connected to Blake. Do like I do and work with the best agent around, and you can tweet that. Hey there, Clemson Tiger fans. If you're interested in advertising with Clemson Podcasts, go to ClemsonPodcasts.com and click on the advertising link. And as always, go Tigers!
This is Clemson Tom, and you're listening to Clemson Sports Talk. So sit down and have you a cold one and listen to a true American.
I like driving down Clemson Boulevard.
Welcome back into the program, the chat room. Oh, my goodness. You guys are amazing. Please, gentlemen, please, and if there are any ladies in here, please go out and tell your friends about the chat room. Tommy Chastain, follow him on Twitter. He's hilarious. He says, Rock the John, sponsored by Duty Calls. That's great. That is fantastic. That is good stuff there. Good humor. Good humor. Well, I got one thing to get to, and then we'll get to our predictions on the game and get you guys on your way back to the rained-out, non-raining ALCS game, apparently. I heard there's not been a drop of rain yet, but it is rained out. Weird. Don't know how that works. Do want to mention, though, Grant, who is currently doing some CrossFit workout stuff. My wife is, we just had our second child, and she's determined to really get out there and work hard. And the guys over at CrossFit, and Grant, he's a Clemson guy, listens to the program. Grant, appreciate what you're doing. Keep up the good work. I don't know if you guys know about that CrossFit training. You need to look into it, though. I mean, that stuff, I'll tell you what, that Carolina Clint guy looks like he's a CrossFit kind of guy. He looks like he's out there tossing rubber tires around and doing all kind of wide-open exercises. But we do appreciate Grant tuning into the program and for coaching up the wife and her friends over there at the CrossFit program. Pretty neat stuff they're doing. Well, our main man, Sammy, not Watkins, of course, Sammy O'Neill checks in each and every week with me to give me the rundown of the PS3 prediction. And I think you're going to like it. Clemson 45, Virginia Tech 28. So says the PS3. Taj Boyd goes 22 of 35 for 333 yards and 3 touchdowns. It just rolls off the tongue. He also had 13 carries for 43 yards and 1 fumble. Be careful there, Taj. We talked about that earlier. The PS3 actually missed last week's game against Georgia Tech, just like yours truly. So the PS3 is off to a 5-1 pace. Andre Ellington carried the ball 17 times for 104 yards and 2 touchdowns. DJ Howard had 4 carries, 25 yards, and a score. Brandon Ford had 8 receptions in a tremendous 136-yard receiving day and 1 touchdown, taking advantage of a lackluster defensive performance by the Hokies. DeAndre Hopkins, 6 catches, 94 yards, and 2 touchdowns, keeps his winning ways up. Sammy still continues the quiet performance. 5 catches, 62 yards, no touchdowns. And on the defensive side of the ball, it was Carrico Wright with 9 tackles. And I saw somebody in the chat room saying they thought Malachi Goodman would have a big game. 6 tackles, 1 sack in this one against the Virginia Tech Hokies on the PS3. Logan Thomas goes 10 of 27 for 123 yards and 1 touchdown. However, it was Logan Thomas's legs, 28 carries, 108 yards, and 2 scores that kept the Hokies in it. But the Tigers win it based on the PS3 prediction, 45-28. Now, before I give you my prediction, I do want to say one thing. And if you have had a chance to kind of peruse the web and see some of the articles that are out there about the strength of schedule and the SEC and all that, look, do some research, find that information, because there's some great stuff out there about how maybe this conference, the SEC, isn't as good as many people expect and think. Now, I'll be honest with you. When I watch those teams play one another, they do look very good, more and maybe better than a lot of the other programs and games that I see across the country. When I watch an Oregon and maybe a Washington or somebody like that getting together, I seem to feel like what I see in the SEC is more powerful football. Maybe that's just the perception kind of soaking in and making me feel that way. But if you get into the mix and see the money that ESPN's got invested, keeping those guys at the top, it's something else you should probably look into to see and get your opinion on it. I'll say this. I'm not exactly sold on the SEC. Mike, you can follow him on Twitter. He's at Bent0, says the SEC is 4-5 in out-of-conference automatic qualifying games. And if you look at the numbers, there's a lot of information out there about it. I don't know what we can do as fans to change that perception. It's going to take the teams like the Clemsons, the Georgia Techs, the Florida States of the ACC and other conferences to beat those teams. I mean, Florida hadn't played an out-of-conference game in 20-some-odd years against out of the state of Florida against a team worth 10 cents. So it's a little bit frustrating when you have those polls at the beginning of the year, and now you've got these teams who you can already see the writing on the wall. If South Carolina beats Florida, South Carolina's going to jump into 5. Florida will drop just below them. You keep that constant mix at the top, you get a chance to get a team playing for the national title. Maybe the reason the SEC has won 6 consecutive national titles is not so much because they have a bunch of strong teams, but because their conference is a bit inflated, and that keeps somebody in that championship game. And last year is the season of all seasons, which really broke open the BCS. I'm glad we're going to see some changes. I hope that when it does come down, like many of you, that perhaps we will see a more of a spread of the wealth across the conferences instead of one conference getting so much push. But it's something you need to look into, and if you hadn't read about it, you need to, because it is a big concern, especially when you're a power like Clemson. But you know what you got to do? You get a shot at a couple of SEC teams. Auburn, I don't care what their record is. South Carolina, I don't care what their record is. You take care of business every time you step on the field with an SEC school. That's all you can do. Now, for my prediction of this game, it kind of goes right along with the PS3. It's going to go right along with everything I've already said in this game, in this program about our team and this offense and Chad Morris. I really think Morris can get dialed in against this Virginia Tech team. And while the Hokies have a lot of talent and a lot of ability to stay in this game, I really think it's probably your Clemson Tigers getting somewhere in the neighborhood of 40-some-odd points and holding the Hokies right around the Xbox. I could have seen myself giving you something like 45-35, but I'm going to go a little lower than 45 in this one. I'm going to play it a little easy. I'm going to say Clemson beats Virginia Tech 42. The Hokies get about 30. So I'm going to go 42-30. I do the prediction live. I don't write it down beforehand. 42-30. Clemson wins it in the Valley. Appreciate you all being here. And until next time, as always, y'all take care now, and go Tigers!